Oh, good. Matt's here too. Hi, Matt.
Howdy, folks.
All right. Hello,
We have a
everyone.
quorum.
Great. I'll call this meeting to order. And we need to do a roll call. So I'll start with Greg,
Here.
Matt,
Present.
Ellen.
Present.
Let me see who else is there. Sorry, Jessica.
Oh,
Can't.
you're muted.
Jessica, you're muted.
Yep.
She's here.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, now we can. Thank you. Jane.
Present.
Did you say yes, Jane?
She did.
I did.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Dorinda? Dorinda somewhere.
The definition of an empty seat right there.
And Michelle here. Okay, the
Oh,
minutes.
there she is. Dorinda's
Greg.
back.
Oh, Dorinda.
Greg's here. Yeah.
No, I already
Sorry,
had-
dinner.
He already.
Dorinda here.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
All right. The minutes of August 22nd. Is there a motion
So moved.
to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Who was the second?
Jane.
Dorinda.
Jane. Okay.
Dorinda.
Dorinda.
Okay.
All right,
Is there
all right.
any discussion on the minutes? All right. If not, let's take a roll call vote. I'll start with Jessica this time. Jessica?
Oops, sorry. Yes. Yep. I approve them. I wasn't at the meeting, but I did watch the video and through its entirety, so I feel comfortable voting on them.
All
Good.
right. Thank you. Matt?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And Michelle? Yes. Did I get everyone? I think I did.
Dorinda,
All right.
yes.
Okay. So let's go right to section 4.
Hey, Greg, can you call that up, please? So our plan of action for tonight is to finish section 4 and hopefully have a tentative approval. And then Steve will take us through section 5, which is pretty much boilerplate. And we hope that that will not stir up any controversies and we can get through that and have a tentative approval. And then Steve is going to just talk a little bit about section 6, which is going to take some discussion at the following meeting and about the assessments. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, tonight we're going to tackle 4. And if you could share your screen. And my plan is to start with the last part of section 4, which we did not discuss or discuss very little last time, because I think the top part we pretty much agreed to. When we get through the discussion of this last part, and that is closing a school, we'll go back to the top, just run through it, hopefully quickly, and then ask for your tentative approval if it looks like it's headed that way.
Is this the right correct
It
one?
is.
One with the edit? Okay, just checking.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't.
No,
well,
that's not the one that we
no,
want.
that's
It's
not
not the most current? Okay.
No.
I just said
No, Jay had sent out a clean, we call it like a clean
Okay.
copy.
All right, give me a second here. Sorry. I got home late. All right. It looks like it's right here. Okay.
Here we go.
Yep.
If you would scroll down to the, or scroll up to the D, section D, Greg, which is the closure of a school.
Okay.
Keep going, please. Keep going. Large capital D.
Oh, B. B
D
is
as in
D.
dog.
This
D as in dog.
This one here?
No, capital D, go back up.
Capital. Oh, here, process to close the school, here. It's just,
Yes.
yeah,
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, we'll just go through this line by line and make sure people are feel comfortable with this. A school is considered closed when the district no longer utilizes the facility as a district school. That's from your current language. So the process to close a school shall begin with a vote by the committee to begin a feasibility study. This vote must be taken at least 10 months prior to vote to close a school and must be approved with a 2/3 majority vote. So let's just think, is there any question about that? So taking a 2/3 vote to just begin a feasibility study.
I have a question.
Sure.
Since it's sort of budget related, so this isn't clear on, so when you're doing a budget, it's two-thirds vote of its membership, meaning with the membership
Right.
in a regional agreement.
Right.
This sounds like 2/3 vote, a majority vote of the committee. Do we want it to have, this is pretty significant. Do we want it to have be a 2/3 vote of its membership? In other words, if there's 12 on the school committee, the membership, it's not those 2/3 of who shows up. I just want to be,
It's never
Clear.
2/3 of who shows up.
I agree,
We
but
could
that hasn't been the practice, Jane, as I have observed at Pioneer.
Oh, you're kidding.
No,
So it has to be made clearer here.
Okay, we can take care of that. So 2/3 vote of the entire committee.
or of its membership. The statute makes it clear, for example, improving a budget, it makes it clear it's of its membership. So that language would be good.
Yeah,
The
actually-
statute says that even if a seat is empty, it counts.
Yeah,
So if there's 12 seats, that's what it's based on. If only 10 seats are filled, that's too bad.
that's
It's
right.
Still based on 12.
That's right. But
So
Pioneer
we
was
should
passing,
choose our language carefully here.
Right, you'll
Well-
see that, actually, that language a little further down. So we'll make sure that that same language is there. That's a good point, Ellen. Thank you.
well, Jane, and my observation and sort of put a stop to this is Pioneer was passing budgets on 2/3 vote of its whoever showed up at the meeting. And we raised the issue that they couldn't do that, so they had to not pass a budget for a bit. All right, go on.
Yeah, thank you. The next sentence was raised by your committee last month to say if a district is participating in a project with a Massachusetts School Building Authority that involves a school closure, this timeline may be modified by a 2/3 majority vote of the committee. And again, we'll add the same language there. So someone said, well, what if we were going to tear down a school because we're going to build a new one? So we added that sentence to say that the school committee could elongate the process if a town were involved with the MSBA.
Well, this doesn't say elongate. The way this is worded, they could change it to 2 months.
It just says the timeline may be modified.
Right. That means up or down.
Should it
The
say may be
modified should be
extended
approved.
instead of modified?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what we want.
that's a good catch, Jane. I
Right.
agree.
So I'm just gonna do the lawyer thing. I'm not sure the necessity of this because the previous clause said the vote must be taken at least 10 months prior to the vote to close the school, and doesn't say anything about it needing to the vote to close the school needing to be taken 10 months following. Right? It says at least 10 months prior, which means it could be 24 months prior. Just, in terms of clarity of drafting here, the second clause that you guys are suggesting seems superfluous.
You mean you don't think we need to mention the school building authority?
If the goal is to allow the committee more than 10 months, there is no need to do that. If the goal is to provide the committee with an opportunity to close a building with less than 10 months, then as it is currently drafted, that would make sense. However, oops, I'm sorry, my video is still off. But yeah, I don't.
I see what you're saying, and I agree with you.
So you're saying the words that say at least 10 months clarifies that?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the will of the group? Should we strike that last sentence about the MSBA?
Yes.
Yep.
Dorinda's got her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dorinda?
this might be related to the fact that I was saying, well, Pioneer and Gil Montague are both sort of have things in the works already. So would that say we, in the time that it takes to vote this, if a school was already in process, like where does that leave it here? Like if it was already in process of being closed before we finish this. So I just wanted to have that.
But
The existing agreements would be
Yeah.
in play until this was actually voted.
Right.
I
So-
actually like the little bit of a disclosure that, that it could be modified if it involves SBAB, because we don't know what influence, they may or may not have in the process of a building project and the transition from the other school into that one. So I don't know. I think it's more encompasses what could happen as a result of SBAB being involved in a project.
So
I don't know.
So,
I think Matt has a good point, but I think if we do leave that sentence, I think it maybe should say extended instead of modified to make it clear that it can't be shorter than 10 months.
Right.
I mean, the at least 10 months makes it very clear that it has to be at least 10 months, so it can't be shorter than that. I just think the MSBA is just kind of giving an example, because not all schools are funded by MSBA. So, I think Matt's right. You could just take it out. I mean, if it comes up, I mean, the wording allows them for more time, but it doesn't allow them for less.
All right, I'm good with that. I can acquiescence to that. Matt makes a good point.
Yep. Okay. Delete last sentence. Okay, good. So moving along to C, and if you can scroll up a little bit, please. So closure of any school within the district shall not be approved without the completion of a 5-year projected feasibility study, which shall address the following components. So a study of the educational impact on students, a fiscal analysis to determine the cost savings, the impact on the regional budget and the individual member town budgets, a review of proposed reorganization of district staff and student assignments, a review of population trends to determine the long-term impact of the closing, and review of the study by an ad hoc committee. Well, let's just stop at 1 through 4. Do you think that covers what you would like to see addressed by this ad hoc committee? Those 4 things?
Yep.
It seems to be pretty comprehensive from what we've used before.
And since I wasn't here at the last meeting, is 5 years, the 5-year projected feasibility study, is that common? Is that sort of standard? Just so I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then 5, this is what was modified from the Hart Committee, because the Hart Committee was based on 4 towns and not 6 towns. So review of the study by an ad hoc committee comprised of 2 members of the committee and 3 members from the town where the school is located. The committee shall give recommendations from the ad hoc committee due consideration. Unfortunately, my notes have been covered up by the full screen here. So what I was just going to say is that committee, let's see. Oh, there are, with 13 school committee members, there are 2 member towns, I think, that have just 1 school committee member. So I would add a comment that comprised of 2 members of the committee, or 1 in the case of the member towns who only have 1 committee member, something to that effect. I have some wording which I can't see
What-
now.
I'm
So
sorry. When I read that, I was interpreting the 3 members from the town where the school is located to
Yes.
mean 3 representatives from that town. I wasn't looking at that phrase as being school committee members.
no, it's not. I'm just talking about the first part when it says comprised of 2 members of the school committee, and some towns only have 1 member of the school committee. So I was just trying to modify that to say if the town only has 1 school committee member, obviously that person would be on this committee, and the other 3 members would be from the town.
Okay, so comprised of 2 members of the school committee, one of which must be from the afflicted town.
Well, if
No.
if a member town has at least 2 school committee members, they will both be from that town.
This doesn't say that.
Yeah, I think, Mac, the thing that, to clarify, this says comprised, so how many members do you envision on the ad hoc committee?
5.
Okay. So it should be 2 school committee members.
Yeah.
Right.
And how are those 2 school committee members determined?
The committee would select those 2 people.
Okay. And then the other 3 members would be non-committee individuals from the town when the school is located.
Steve, you can weigh in. I was looking at this the last couple of days, and that should be more clear. I'm guessing it probably should be selected by the select board.
Yeah, I would agree. It would be the select board would select who would be on that committee. So that could be added to it as well. And 3 members from the town where the school is located by the select board.
So we'll modify this to say comprised of 2 members of the committee from that town, if there are 2 committee members. I'll work on that. And 3 members from the town selected by the select board.
Okay,
All
so
right.
the school
No.
committee members should be from the town where the school is located.
Yes.
So the
I don't
issue
agree with
here,
that.
the issue here is that, I don't know if Gil, but Warwick has 1 member, if I recall, when we go back. So, does Gil have 1 member? I don't remember.
Leiden has one.
Leiden has
Leiden.
Leiden
Yeah.
has 1 member. All right. So the point being that the way this reads is it assumes that there are 2 school committee members from every town. That's not the case, I thought.
I don't think it reads that way. This is my issue. The way that I see this reads, it could be 2 members of the committee from any town whatsoever.
No, that's why
Yes.
when we rewrite it, Matt, we will say from the town where the school is to be closed. That's the intent, anyway.
That's it. Okay, if that's the intent, I mean, I could agree to that. That's not what my preference would be for that committee. I don't know why the
Right.
ad hoc committee would be entirely from that town. But if that's what the board, this subcommittee's desire is, then I'm not going to argue it.
Well,
I
that's up to
didn't
you.
think
We
they
can
were
modify
5.
that.
I didn't think there were 5 people from the town, that particular town.
That is
I
the
really
intent.
don't remember, to be honest with you, but That seems a little odd to me. It doesn't seem odd to anyone else?
Yes,
Well,
it does.
Yeah, I would think from a broader perspective that, and I have to agree with Matt on this in terms of if you're trying to get a broad perspective in the closing of a school, I can certainly see three members from the town of which the school is going to be closed, appointed by the select board, at least one school committee member from the town of which it's closed, preferably two, if there are two members, and then maybe three members from the
At
you know,
large?
at large, yeah, to be appointed by the school committee, so that you have a broader perspective.
I-
Otherwise, you have a think tank of just one
Well,
direction.
I have a question though. I don't, to me, this ad hoc committee is a review of the study. It's not the people doing the study.
Correct.
Right. So the review is because if everyone, if there's a majority vote to close the school and it's only the town that is looking to defend itself, then it does to me make sense that all those people that review it would be in that town. Because then after that, you're going to have a review. There's going to be, it looks like some sort of public forum where
Right.
they get a chance to look at it and say, okay, this study was formed or this study was taken not by us, but we've reviewed it in defense of our own, in defense of our town. So to me, it makes sense. And maybe I'm misinterpreting it. I don't know. Is that?
As
No,
I
that's-
remember when we were doing, Madam Chair, as I remember we were doing this with the Heart Committee, that this was that the town then can weigh in and look at the report and then respond back to it. So I think
Right.
I would agree with Greg. I think that was the intent when we were doing that.
If that's the intent, then I understand that, and will abide by this with the clarifications, given that not all towns would have two school committee members. Thank you.
Okay.
I
You
have
still
a,
want the 3 members at large appointed?
No, the language as written with the clarification regarding towns that do not have two members is sufficient if the intent is for a town to defend itself.
And Matt, what about adding the 3 members selected by the select board?
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, we'll draft something up and you could review it again, but I think we've got the gist of what you want.
So there won't be any at large, and I'm fine with that. That's what you're doing, Mike? There won't be
Yes.
any at large. Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Jane
Jane
is.
has her hand up. Jane?
I have a problem. Don't I always? In B, we're saying that we have to have a feasibility study. Then we start C by saying that in C, we don't even reference the fact that we've already required a feasibility study. I don't know how I want to change this. But
Yeah,
it sounds like this is a second feasibility study.
Yeah, I agree, Jane. It feels like C should come before B. But it's
Or else C should just say the above feasibility study should.
right. Yeah,
Yes,
I agree.
that's
I agree.
a good point, Jane.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, good. So D, prior to the vote of the committee and with 2 weeks' notice, the committee shall hold a public forum in the member town where the school is proposed to be closed. The purpose of this forum is to review the results of the feasibility study.
So should this be prior to the final vote of the committee to close the school as opposed to the preliminary vote, which is referenced above?
Yeah, that's a good point. We could put that final. Yeah. That's good. E, a
Is
vote.
2 weeks, is
I'm
2
sorry?
weeks enough? Is 2 weeks notice enough? Every time I read this, that pops into my head, so I'll share my question with you.
I kind of agree, Jane, for something this big, 30 days feels a little bit more appropriate.
I would agree.
Okay. 30 days. Okay, good point. All right. So E, a vote by the committee to close a school shall require a supermajority vote of at least 10 members of the full committee. This is where this is more clear, with representation from at least 4 towns voting to support closure. The vote shall be held at a regularly scheduled committee meeting. So it's a very high standard. Takes 10 votes, and there has to be positive votes from at least 4 of the 6 towns.
Now, that's a change, because I recall last time, at least I thought I recall, we were talking about 5 out of 6 with the one town that maybe didn't want their school. So I thought the higher standard would be 5 towns.
Well, that's a higher standard, but it might be so high that it can never happen.
Well, didn't we have that before? We had 5, and then we said in the town that voted against it, you know, had an opportunity, and you got into that later on in this. I was surprised to see 4. I thought I saw 5 before.
Maybe. Alan, can we come back to that when we get to the very last part of this and see if you
Sure.
think the fail-safe at the end is enough to cover that? Because as you said, 5 is a pretty high standard. So we'll definitely come back to that. So F, a school may be closed on June 30th after the committee vote. So this G came from the Hart Committee work.
Wait a second, on F.
Pardon me?
On F, shouldn't that be the following year on June 30th? And if they take this vote on June 15th, they're going to close it on June 30th? I know
It clears it up later in the, later on, it talks about it doing it, but you could clear it up right here.
if they find it ambiguous, if they find 2 different places where they can interpret it differently, we'll be in trouble.
Right? Should be the following year.
Well, the purpose of that is to say it would end on June 30th, which is the end of a fiscal year. They can't just close it like in April of the current year. It has to be the end of
Well,
the fiscal year.
I don't
Right,
have a
but if
problem
they
with June
vote-
30th. My problem is that it doesn't reference which June 30th. So
Okay.
if the vote is, I said June 15th, but suppose the vote is in April or March, and they're gonna close it on June 30th, and I don't think that's right. It should be the following year on June 30th.
So it could say, Jane, be closed on the second June 30th after the committee vote. That would give you the year and plus whenever they voted.
Or the next fiscal year's
And-
June 30th.
Be closed on June 30th of the following year after the committee vote.
What do you think, Matt? Is that legally clarified?
Well, that-
Jane's language is fine. I can't remember who suggested the one before that would be fine, but I do agree that what Jane is saying, if what Jane is looking to clarify is in fact the intent of this clause, that it should be clarified. And the following is perfectly fine for me. That's standard language.
Jane, could you give me that wording again, please?
On June 30th of the following year.
Following year or fiscal year?
Doesn't matter, the following year, that'll be June 30th.
How about
Following
following
year
school?
after the committee vote. That was someone
If
said.
they vote,
The following year after the committee vote, leaves after the committee vote in there, just
How about
insert
after
of the
the
following. year.
following the following school year. Would that be helpful?
Well, that's what I was saying, fiscal year. I mean, if they vote in December, the end of December, you're saying, Jane, they could close it the following June 30th.
Oh,
No,
Yes, I
it would
do.
have to be after, a year after the committee vote.
So make it fiscal year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or school year. Right, be the next school year. Because then it would be after the June.
All right,
It would be the second June. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
And I would add, part of it just dawned on me, part of it is then you have to notify GESE, because then they have to take that school offline for their purposes of everything that they do for testing or whatever. So they can't say on June 30th, then take it off, and you're into the next year. They need time to take care of that, and where are those kids gonna go is the other issue.
Right.
I would agree with that wording.
Okay. Now this is the G is what came from the Heart Committee. There was as Alan will remember, there was a lot of discussion about this. And Michelle too. There was concern about what the town, if their elementary school is closed, how is the town going to deal with that on a short-term basis? So this says the district will pay in each of the 3 years after closure to the town in which a town-owned elementary school is closed, 50% of the budgeted costs to maintain the facility. These costs will address utilities, maintenance of building and grounds, and related maintenance supplies. Payment to the member town will be made by the end of November and April. Beginning on July 1st, immediately after the school is closed, the lease for that school will be terminated. And if the building is sold or fully repurposed prior to the end of the 3-year period, the district will no longer be responsible for this compensation. So again, that's to soften the blow to the town where if their elementary school is closed. How does that strike people?
I'd like to hear from Warwick and Leiden, because this is pretty much the way it was handled for each of you. Was that fair? What was missed?
No, it was only a year for Leiden. It wasn't 3 years.
Well, that's because you repurposed the building right away.
It wouldn't have been though, 3 years, I think. It was only, Leiden was the one that brought this up. There was nothing in the current district agreement.
Oh, okay.
But
Um,
the concept of the 3 years came up, Michelle, I believe, with the
Yes,
Heart Committee.
right.
Yeah, I think obviously Michelle and I were advocating for this. Looking back, I do kind of think it's fair. It's pretty hard. It's hard to convert these schools. We did take over ours, but we still talk about, do we need this much space? And we don't think the school building would be very easy to sell. So I guess having empathy for a town this might happen to in the future, then I think it's pretty fair.
I like the 3 years. I am. You read something about it being partially, read the part that said district closure of town which owned building. Budget cost.
I think you may be thinking of the next paragraph, Alan.
Well, when you read it, it was something to do
Oh.
with
Oh,
partially used, like if.
sold
if
or
they-
fully repurposed. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah, I am. I mean, to
Second
me,
line.
yeah, you're right, Jane. Thank you. If they had a couple offices in it, that should be fine. So you're talking fully like they take over and they're using the whole building. I'm fine with this language.
Okay, now the last part is probably going to take some discussion. And this is Alan, in reference to your comments above about whether it needs 5 towns or 4 towns to vote to close a school. So after a committee vote to close a school, the town where the school is located may vote at a regular or special town meeting to continue to operate the school in question, with the requirement that the town will reimburse the district for either all or a portion of the salary and benefit costs related to that school, and the committee will abide by that town meeting vote. Nothing shall prevent the committee from initiating another school closure process after a town meeting vote to keep a school open. So a town meeting can vote to keep their school open, but there is a requirement that there will be some cost involved, because as Steve talked with me about this before, it's not really fair. For one school, the cost per pupil is, say, $22,000, and the other elementary schools all average 18. That means those other 5 towns are subsidizing that school that's costing a lot more money. This way, and actually, again, I added 2 different things. Let me read what I should put in here is, continue to operate the school in question with the requirement that the town will reimburse the district to reduce the assessments for all. So the point of that money would go to reduce the assessment, not just back to the school district. And then we can decide whether or not it should be all of the salary costs and benefit costs or some portion of it. But it should be enough so that the other towns are not subsidizing that school. But it does give them an option.
So Mac, you're clarifying that the money should be returned to the towns and not the school, which I think is correct, right?
Right. So that didn't get in here before it was sent to you, Greg. So
yeah,
we will add that, assuming you want that.
Yes, I think that's the proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure that it doesn't, money does not go back to the schools. So just make sure in the form of a reduced assessment.
Right.
So I must have got a copy that had what you had in it, because this is meeting would continue to operate the school, reimburse the district for all or portion of the salary. I have that in the copy that I was reading. So the only thing, and I understand the last sentence, you know, if 1 year the committee votes to close a school and then it doesn't happen or whatever, that would mean that, you know, that they never could come back again. So, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, things change, that the door is always open for the committee to do that. So I understand the intent of that last sentence. My question is this, does that, so you're preparing a budget, and it appeared to me like you were preparing a whole budget with the assessment of Gill, I'll use a different town, in their budget in the overall assessment. So now you've already assessed all the towns, including Gill, for the budget, for the total budget. So somehow you'd have to back that out. Because if Gill just reimburses the district and it's going to reduce the assessment, when you initially put the budget together, you used all of the buildings.
Right.
So that didn't, you know, mathematically, as I was trying to figure out how you balance that wasn't clear to me, because it implies the budget was prepared on everybody and now you're going to have to reimburse them. So I think it needs a little more work. Yeah.
Alan, if I could come in, what we added here, that would be another year. You can't do it to the following year. So they vote on June, say they voted this April, May, or June to close it would be the following year, and you're preparing the budgets for that following year. So you got a year in there to make it all work. So
You can basically make 2 budgets and then you're reimbursing the difference.
Okay.
No, you'd make, no, because if you close it they vote to close it, let's say in May. This is not going to happen till the following June 30th. Well, you're going to be making your year up for the next July 1, making your budgets up. It can be all adjusted for that. Because you added that in the following year. So that stops that from being the next immediately June 30th they're closed. It's the following June 30th. So that takes care of what you had, Alan, and that's a very good point. How is it going to happen? Because then you calculate how much they're going to have to pay to keep it open, and then that amount would be used to reduce the assessments to the other member towns. And
So
I'm-
why, so
Well,
Steve, why would, go ahead, Jane, because that's still not making sense to me. Go ahead.
All right, this is how I saw it. The budget would be prepared, so the town votes to keep the school open. That means they're going to essentially stay in the district with their school. So the budget gets prepared just as it has been in the past for all of the schools. Then once the budget is prepared, you do the mathematics to say, Gil Montague is paying $20,000 per student, and Northfield is paying 18, and so is everybody else. So Gil needs to reimburse the $2,000 or whatever I just said for each student. And that money is to be applied to the assessments of the other member towns. That's how
Yeah,
I'm reading it.
Yeah,
That
I don't
is-
think that's, go ahead,
Yeah.
Steve.
That would be correct. Now, remember, we up under CE, I'm sorry, under F, you said the following year, am I correct? So they voted
Yes.
like May or June, so it's the following June that it's going to close, correct?
Yes.
The budget will stay in place that following year. Then during that year, you're creating the budget for the following year, and that takes into account that it's going to close and how much is the town going to have to pay to keep it open, and you can use that money that they'll pay to reduce the assessments. So it's in there. It's not just being immediately, it takes a year to do it. So you got like a transition year to get that to all work.
So
I'm
Steve,
gonna
would you,
say,
oh, go ahead, Matt.
That's not-
I think it's gonna be really hard to get this as clear and exacting in terms of the process as we would like. In the time that the subcommittee has allotted, because this would be an extraordinary situation and there would be a lot of emotions in this point in time. But because I don't see this ever happening. I just don't.
Well, Matt, it did happen.
What happened?
Warwick wanted to keep the school open and pay the district the difference.
I definitely see this as a possibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that the school district wouldn't hear it.
Yeah, so,
So wait a second. And so do you think that was good or bad that the school district wouldn't hear it?
it was bad.
I think it was bad, but we don't want to veer off into why I think that.
No, that's fine. We don't need to veer off, but I'm glad to hear, that folks are like, oh no, that was bad. Okay.
So the only thing that I have, and I'm gonna go back to, and I know, Steve, you said, per pupil cost is I liked that you were more finite, and it looked like you looked at Schedule 3 of, each school, and you identified specific things like, and that's what could be nailed down later, not per pupil cost, but specifically the teacher's salary, the teacher's benefits, and some of those specific areas is what would be reimbursed.
Yeah, that's correct, Alan, because in a school budget, traditionally 80% of your budget is salaries. And probably 70% is just teachers. So, I mean, with the percentage. But I want to make clear that let's just use this as an example. So let's just say this year, say in May, the school committee decides to close school A. I don't want to say, or school B. I don't want to say it. So they vote to close it. When's it going to close? The following year, correct? Does everybody agree that's what you wanted to put in there? The
Right.
following
Yeah.
year. So now they're going to prepare budgets for the third year, the second year out, and that's how they'll apply for it, that the town will be then starting the following July 1, paying their fee to keep that building open, you'll know what that amount is, and that'll be reducing the assessments for not the next year, but the following year from that. You would be 2 years out. So that would work. And I'm just saying that from a business manager's point of view, which I wasn't, then that would work.
I agree.
Hey, Steve, yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. But the only thing I would question is there a finite amount of time for if a town wants to vote and remain open? You know, I mean, that could be, they could wait for a year, you know, before they decide to take it to a vote. And this committee had already voted to close it. So, you know, you're running into a time issue there. Should we tighten up the language as far as, you know, if it's voted to close, then within 2 months, the town who owns the elementary school or whatever school it is, needs to vote?
I would suggest you could put like a November 1st date that they have to decide by November 1st that they want to keep it open the following.
Yeah, just so you're not running into another time issue where they just drag their heels.
That's a great point. It's a great point because it helps in
It
the
is.
planning process.
I would say November 1st is a reasonable time, because they can call special town meetings in the fall and make a decision. Even if you want to make December 15th to give them a little more time. So December 15th, and that's fine. From the business manager's point of view, you have plenty of time to create your budgets.
So what if the school committee votes after that time in April?
No, I'm talking the fall. I'm talking, Mac. Say they voted this April to close B, and they said we're going to close it. Then the town B says, well, we're willing to pay. They have to make a decision by November 15th of next year, of November 15th of the next school year, because it's going to be the following school year that would all take effect. You just got to look at the timing of the timing. And Mark, Greg's absolutely correct. You can't let them say when they give them a timeline. If they don't agree to it by, say, November 15th to pay, then it's going to close. End of discussion.
So that would allow the school committee to revise the budget between November 1st and the town meetings.
Absolutely. You'd have plenty of time to do it.
And use that same language we used before of the following school year.
Right.
Following
Yes.
year. Use that we used above.
Yeah, Mac and I got to work on the language a little bit to make it clear. I think hopefully if I expressed it, that we'll clear it up. But again, what the idea was in this section was to give the town a chance to say, yeah, it's so much we want to keep this building. We'll pay the extra money to keep it open and stay a member of the district. And by the way, the DESE will now accept that. There's been issues in the past. They will now accept that. There's a big case with another district and another school. They finally agreed that if the town wanted to pay the extra to the region, they'll agree to it.
So in concept, I think this is good. I mean, we could probably go on. I don't know if we have to get in the weeds anymore, but if people agree with this concept, it seems to be fair. And I think that's what most people are looking at. Is it fair?
Let me give you an Alan response to that. Let me draw up a timeline for you, okay? We'll do it like over a 3-year timeline, what it has to look like. Okay.
I want to get into the weeds just a little bit more because we have clarified a little bit of how this can be worked out through budgets, right? Just so not around the timeline language, but around the language, the town will reimburse the district for all or a portion of salary and benefit costs. So would this be like based on how we've been discussing the budgetary concept, this would be the town will reimburse the district for this differential salary and benefit costs?
Most likely, yes, we'd probably be looking at that. In other words, what it costs, just having to spend more money. What you can do is you have to report for every school. In the end of your report, under Schedule 2 is Schedule 3 is the cost of each school's operation for education. And of the teachers, your paraprofessionals, your administrators, whatever the cost of that for the educational piece of it, not electricity or anything else, water. But that's what it does. So you can take it from that, and that's reported at DESE. So you can use those numbers to say, this is exactly spent, and you use the prior year to do it so that you know exactly how much that they have to pay in order to keep their building open.
So,
so that would be for all of the Schedule 3 costs is what you're saying?
Well, Schedule 3, if say you want to close schedule, you see each of your town, in your town, in your region now, every school in the region it has to report schedule into Schedule 3, each school's cost, educational cost, which they call the 2000, Schedule 2000, which is the educational cost. So by school, how many teachers are in that building, how many administrators, special ed, et cetera, everybody that's there, what those costs are. And then you can compare and take a look and come up with, we haven't thought that totally out yet. How much is it a differential that they have to, because it costs more, they have to pay that additional cost? Yes, you can work that out looking at it on a cost factor for pupil costs or teacher costs or whatever they're doing. The problem that happens is in a school that you want to close, the enrollment's gone down, which is you say what you, they say you want to normally say one of the schools, the average for the say third grade was like 20 kids. But in this other school, there's only 10 kids. Well, 10 kids are getting it, but they have to have a teacher. It's costing them same thing. Teacher's going to cost them what it costs in one town, the other town. It's a teacher cost. And there's other costs that go with it to have that, but they're only doing 10 kids as opposed to 20 kids. So for pupil costs go up for when you have fewer kids. So that's a whole nother study I'd be glad to do if you people want to. But again, we're trying to provide something that a town could say, we want to keep the school open and we're willing to pay for it.
Right. And I think that's the best approach. Just look at Schedule 3, identify what the educational costs are. I don't think you want to get into the utility issue, but certainly the staff, the parents, the educational costs for kids.
I want to
Oh, I
clarify.
disagree. I think town
Major
people are
cost
going to be pissed from other towns that they're paying electricity to keep a school open. They didn't want it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I disagree that Schedule 3, like if the goal is you're going to pay the entire cost of the Schedule 3 cost, right? So I'm trying to get like, are we looking at a differential? Or are we looking at a whole cost, right? Are we looking at a portion or a whole? What you're proposing is a whole cost based on, wait, let me finish.
Yep.
Do I understand correctly? What you're proposing is the whole cost based on Schedule 3?
No,
No.
Steve, let me try to clarify. We aren't thinking about proportion of anything. We're talking about a specific cost, and that the words in parentheses, we want you to help clarify. But
right.
So the question is, in Schedule 3, what is the total cost of teachers and their benefits? That's what that town would have to pay to keep their school open. Or you could say they only have to pay 50% of the salary and benefits. So it's not any proportion. At least that's not what we're thinking. It's a cold hard fact. Look at Schedule 3. How much do the teachers cost? How much are their benefits? And do you want to make that town pay 100% of that, 75% or 50%?
Yeah, I think that percentage thing is silly and arbitrary, right? Like, how would that be grounded?
I don't like that. I don't like that. I think it should be based on cost per pupil, as I said several minutes ago. The per pupil cost, when Leiden was being closed, when Warwick was being closed, the whole conversation was around the per pupil cost.
So right, it's the difference between the projected per pupil cost of the district with the school closed and the projected per pupil cost of that school having to continue to run, right?
I was averaging the schools that were going to take. You've already got a per pupil cost for each building that's in your district.
Right.
Steve, how feasible is that? Could you do that?
Yeah, you can come up with, you'd have to define exactly the cost that you want to hit with. Yes. If it's just the educational cost, it's very easily done.
Why can't you just use the per pupil cost that DESE calculates?
You can if you want. Whatever this committee wants to do, you can do it. You just have to define it clearly what you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't think that's a good idea? Why not?
No.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying whatever you decide to
I
do.
know you didn't say it, but I heard it. in your
Here,
voice.
I would suggest we table exactly what we want and come back to it, just so we can keep moving. It's something that I don't think we're gonna come to a conclusion necessarily tonight, but we've got a couple of good ideas. So, it may be something we kick to the full board.
We'll give you two options, basically what we have here and what Jane is saying. We'll have wording for both of those next time.
I think that's good. Let's move on.
The last thing to say is that, is everybody in agreement you want this section in so that the town has the option to keep it open and pay for it? If everybody's agreement, that's the major thing for this section. Then we'll get into the weeds on some of it.
I won't fight it.
Remember,
Okay.
we're trying to do broad strokes right now. Everything's going to be open for debate later. So
we have two choices. We can move on to section 5, or we can go back and look at the top. It sounds like we've made enough changes, so we ought to make the changes and next time go through all of section 4 and hopefully have you tentatively approve it. Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Greg, if you could pull up section 5, Steve can take over.
Okay. Okay, section 5 is, Jay, this is not the exact one that we did it? It just show some changes that we did. All right. This is, the budget is really a pro forma one, is how you're doing the budget. So the first section talks about that you have to determine a budget. The second one is the public hearing. And one of the things that if you look in there, we deducting the amount of state aid. Well, that's all under the assessment, so it doesn't belong here. This is just the procedures that you have to follow in developing your budget. And then you get into sections, and the next section 6 would be the assessment. So again, to talk about conducting a public hearing and going what you have to do. The budget will itemize everything that you're supposed to. It'll give you the dates, that one. And it's adopted by 2/3 of the committee, must be approved by simple majority vote of 2/3 of the member town meetings. So again, this has to be, you're using if you're using a statutory method, the only thing we got to create that the annual budget by 2/3 vote of the committee, and must be approved by a majority, by simple majority at 2/3 of the member towns. That's if you're using a statutory method. So we got to note that. And when I looked at that now, it's got to be, you got to make sure and see that's a statutory method, which we're going to be proposing. And then the next section talks about the timeline that you have to follow, and that's pretty much described in state law, the timeline that you have to follow to get things in, to do that. The next thing, if you go down to the next one, the committee shall each year submit annual reports, number 4, and that is
Steve, Jane has her hand up.
I'm sorry, Jane, go ahead.
I think Mass General Law states that the district treasurer is supposed to send the report to the treasurers, the Board of Selectmen, and the finance committees.
Correct.
And so that needs to be inserted here.
Okay.
And then you were down to the annual report, and that February 15th should stay back in there because the town is obligated to print their reports in our annual meetings, and we need it by February 15th in order to submit it to the printers in time.
Yeah. Let me just, you're absolutely correct. So that date should be back in, the 15th should be in, absolutely correct.
Thank you.
When we first looked at it, didn't understand, but I think that's a result of the art agreement that the towns weren't getting the reports. So that takes care of 4. You go to the next page. A, and we're under here amendments, and this is amendment. This is what happens if you want to amend your budget. The process you got to go through. It has to be, again, there's two parts that happens. One, if you amend your budget, that the towns have to pay more, then all the towns, they have to approve it, and they have 45 days to do it. If they don't do something within 45 days, it become a yes. If they do call a town meeting, they can say no. Again, that's just listing that, and the state law really is what governs that.
Can I raise another question?
Sure.
All of these items that are actually a reiteration of the current Mass General Law, why wouldn't it make sense to say, in accordance with Mass General Law, section whatever, or as amended? So that when they go in and amend it, it doesn't make our agreement out of date.
You actually could. At the time that we did this, they wanted the MART agreement. People, I think, Alan, you might remember, wanted to have it written out so they didn't have to go back and find the laws or regulations. So again, we could put that in and add the laws to it and say, add the laws and say this is subject to the laws as amended. If you want some direction for them. Otherwise, they're trying to make it easier for someone new coming in, reading the agreement, they know exactly what they have to do.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also know how marked up our current district agreement is with comments saying this isn't the Mass General Law anymore. But the agreement was written back in 1990 something.
Well, we can add, this section subject to Mass General laws and amendments to it if you'd like. I think that's a good point. That's saying that you don't have a problem because it's a higher order ranking that the agreement comes and then mass laws can override anything in the agreement. So we can add that in.
I like that because then at the end, when changes are made, you can have an addendum to the agreement that just clarifies that instead of having to go back and amend the whole agreement. You can attach what the new amendment was.
Absolutely, Alan. Very good point. And then the last thing here on number 6, it talks about if the town withdraws or comes in, and we think that really belongs under the towns to withdraw or admissions. It doesn't belong in this section. Then it would be done under that section when if they would go leave or stay. So that's why we don't think it should be in there.
Yeah, I agree. I was glad to see you had the idea of moving that.
Yeah. So we'll go back and look and double check on some of these. We'll cite the laws in each section that would apply and say subject to Mass General Law, blah, 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 as amended. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your help on that. Good.
So as we said at the beginning, this is pretty boilerplate from the state. It's the next section 7 or 6 that's going to take a lot of discussion about the assessments. So any other thoughts or questions about section 5?
Okay, if we could move on to section 6, if there's going to be just a preliminary discussion with you to point things out. We sent to you, you hired the Abrams group a year, Alan, what, a year ago, 2 years ago, a year ago?
Yeah. They did a presentation last November, 2023.
And
about a year ago.
Yeah. And what I talked to Matt Abrams of the Abrams group yesterday, and you had given them I think 5 possible assessment concepts, and they did those 5. And then they took and did a 10th statutory method. And I do need to tell you that in the regional agreement, you have to have a statutory agreement. It has to be in the agreement. Standard DSC won't approve your agreement unless you have a statutory method in there. And you could put an alternate method as additional if you wanted to. The major difference is statutory requires 2/3 of your member towns to vote yes at a town meeting. And if you do an alternate method, all towns have to agree to the new assessment and the budget. So
and don't they also have to do, if you do an alternate, they have to do it every year?
Yes, that is correct. You're absolutely correct. They have to notify every year that they're doing it. And if it fails, that they didn't do it, then you go to a statutory method.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now the other thing the Abrams group did, if you take a look on page 10 of the report, The Abrams group did you gave them 5 statutories. They did 5. And then they looked at it and decided to do, they thought it might be better as a 6th one, to look at. And that one was, they would take a look at the average required distribution. What they would do is, it'd be a 5-year average required district contributions. And it would be it'd be a rolling average that you would do. And they list in there 3 reasons why they would do that. And they talk about that merge in Western, they use the same metric of operating assessments. And the district contribution includes multiple factors for each town, like the EQV, income, and foundation enrollment, whereas other metrics chosen usually option 1 factor, resident enrollment or foundation enrollment. And then using the average over multiple years mitigates year-to-year fluctuation assessments when compared to using a 1-year data. So they thought that might be a good one to use. Now, we've arranged for the next meeting. There'll be primarily, we're going to probably do the section 6, the assessment, and Matt Abrams will be at that meeting, who is the major author of it, and he can go through and answer any of your questions. The thing that we were thinking about, maybe if we took that one that they kind of thought would be a pretty good one to look at, we could write that up and put it on, and like it might appear in your regional agreement. You have to write it up in a form, and we also then maybe could show you in a calculation form. And then you can take a look and go through, answer any all questions on the others. What do you think would be best for you to use? There's no recommendation. It's just something that they put together, that they thought from the work that they did for you, that this might be something to really look at. And so they said it would be like, they think it's a better one. They're not recommending it, but they thought it gives you more accustomed to changes that can happen over year to year, especially the 5-year rolling average. So you don't get all of a sudden these big increases or decreases, and then the next year you get a big increase. So that's what we thought, the rolling average. And based on the required district contribution by each town to the district.
So Steve, Michelle, can I? Steve,
Yes.
what they sort of recommended, and I think it's, we're trying to stay as close to the theme of what people are used to. There's a 5-year average presently used. I think it's in both districts, but if we look at their, how the assessments are done, I don't think they're very far apart. And I think their recommendations are consistent with how it's being done. So I think it would make a lot of sense for you to write it up and get it out to everybody so that they can review it. And particularly if that's the perspective they're going to come to, and these are the statutory methods we recommend, it makes the most sense. It's consistent with how you're used to seeing it. And then we can compare what they're saying to the language. It might expedite the meeting.
Well, what happens is, if I could, Michelle, say, when you're using the district contribution by each town, okay, that's using to distribute the amount above. It's basically in a statutory method. You take your budget minus your total Chapter 70, minus your total minimum local contributions, and then any other aid, any other income that you want to put toward it. Sometimes you have tuitions or ED or whatever, and then that's the amount above. That, because remember, foundation budgets are only a minimum. That amount above, how do you distribute that out to the towns? And using the foundation, the district contribution of each town, because that can vary depending what happens in the town. It's based on the wealth of the town, the population, the income for the population, as well as the population, as well as the value of the properties. And so those things change, as opposed to just doing student enrollment, and it kind of stagnant in student enrollment, and that might not be, and that's where he could talk more about. And I'll ask him to give a little bit more on some of these others that they proposed. The 6 of them, and of those 5, what he thought, the issues that they see maybe in it, and what does it mean in the future. So again, I think I commend you for hiring them. We've worked with the Abrams groups on many projects together, They did a nice job outlining these. And so we thought we'd like to, and I appreciate all the commenters, if you one that they think it may be not recommending it, they're just saying this has some nice things about it that might be helpful over the years.
And
I
that's.
also suggest that you, at the end of the last page of their report, you'll see two sets of figures. One is the actual assessment to each of the towns in each of the 10 configurations that they did. And then the last chart is the percentage change for each town by each of those 10 options.
Right.
So they like option number 10. So you can look at that and see how that changes the assessment and the percentage assessment to each of your towns.
Yeah, now one of the things I do want to add, they're taking the current, then there would be a one-time adjustment that you'd have the new assessment based on whichever one you choose. Then in the future, it'll follow, you won't see some of those changes that you saw there. Some of the towns a little more, some less, but then it'd be a little more consistent. But when you have assessments under one system and then you put a newer system in, you're going to get changes that first year. Then the years after that, it'll be pretty much rolling out and hopefully stop any large increases or all of a sudden decreases, and then the following year you got a major increase. So that's what we'd like to present to you at the next meeting.
Sounds like a
So-
plan.
I'm done.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's a lot to digest.
Jane had a question. I heard her starting to talk, but I think I talked over her. I apologize. Jane?
That's all right. I don't know what it was.
Jane, I appreciate your comments very much. Thank you.
Now, I do my homework and then that makes me have questions. Maybe I won't have time to read next time.
Please keep asking questions because we need to get them at this level, because then we go to, you want to do this, go to the public. We already have the answers. It makes life easier.
Exactly. That's my attitude. Think of all the questions I might have and then add 10 more. Maybe you'll be lucky.
So
Yeah,
when you,
I appreciate your input too, Jane, and your knowledge on all of this.
Thanks, Ginger.
I appreciate it.
You're my booster always.
So, looking at our agenda for next time, since Matt Abrams is going to be with us, I assume that we would start with section 6.
yes,
And whatever time is left from that, if there is some, we'll go back and go through the section 4 that we've worked on tonight with all the changes. And I guess I'm going to assume, based on the conversation tonight, that section 5, we probably won't see any changes. Obviously, if you with Jane do your homework and you see something in section 5 that you would like to talk about, that's fine. But as we've said, it's pretty boilerplate. And if we add the references to the law, hopefully that will be acceptable. So we'll start with number 6 next time, if that's okay, and then we'll go to 4 and finish
You can
that.
take a look at Mac. They can look at 4 and 5 as well, just to review, and so we can get consensus. Yeah, let's go ahead and proceed with that. So.
Does that sound like a reasonable plan?
Yep.
yeah. How
Yeah.
far off are we from the timeline? You know, you originally thought about going through this. We're in September. Where did you think we would be at this point in the agreement? Just so I can gauge how we're doing.
Well, to partly answer your question, our thought was it would take about a year from the time we started, sometimes so 12 to 14 months. So, and I think Steve would agree, we will have done, if we get beyond 6, the most difficult part of the whole regional agreement. Most of the rest of it, I don't think there will be too many controversies. There will be things that we can obviously wordsmith and change, but I don't think there will be things that you will feel that are significantly different that need to be changed. So I
Okay.
think we're we'll be over the hump after we get through 6.
Okay, good.
Good.
Well, Madam Chair, for the next meeting, Jay will be back and I will be away. So we'll kind of switch. So Jay's overseas and I'm going on a cruise, so.
Well,
that's what
great.
I'll be, so,
On the financial one, Steve, that's your forte.
yeah, I know. We'll go over that. We get it done I get with Matt. Matt is very good. He can explain the things. But the idea would be is to show you what does the 10th one look like? How's it written up? And then also talk about with him doing a model. That's the biggest thing to give to the superintendent, business manager. What is the model? What gets subtracted? How does it work? Because you got 6 towns in there. The other thing I meant to mention to you, if I almost forgot, under their report, when they developed a budget for each of for the full 6-town region, they had the health insurance was an issue, and Gil Montague's was more expensive than Pioneer. They assumed going with a more expensive one to show you what the numbers are. So when you see two different things, look at it. And they also talked about a 5-town and 6-town, but also in the 6-town, they looked at it doing the higher cost factor because it is negotiable. But I think most of us know, it'd be difficult to take from one district, certain things away and not have it. So again, it'll be difficult negotiation. So they're trying to give you a reasonable what the numbers would be.
And so when I looked at that, just I think the reasonable one was I looked at the 10 assessments with the Gil Montague plan. Things went down when you looked at the Pioneer plan, but I won't get into the details, but I think that's probably the one we will want to be using in our conversation.
The Gil Montague, are you saying is what we want to use?
Yeah, I think Jane,
It-
because of the
No, I didn't know what you
Yeah.
meant.
yes,
Clarifying.
yeah, so,
The Gil Montague insurance.
yeah.
Well, and then there's the percentages the districts are covering. It's considerably different too.
Yeah. That'll be a great meeting. I don't know if out of that meeting, and we can look at our budget a little bit, Greg, but if Matt is amenable to the task, because this was, we'll be, 2 seasons out, to take specific information, and because they have now a rubrics and a formula and a spreadsheet, they can plug in numbers and it will generate these things. They did a lot of great work. I'm wondering if they would be willing to plug in the new numbers that we have now and have it produce another document. That'll be maybe a follow-up conversation with him later.
I'm going to be talking to them, Alan. Do you want me to check with them on that?
Yeah,
Come on.
see if that's a
Where's
major
the-
task, since they have that document. They have that
We have the
formula all
tool.
embedded.
They have the
Yeah,
tool that they developed.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was supposed to be designed so that it would be easy to
Correct.
import the new budget.
Yeah,
That's right.
I mean, we paid for a pretty substantial financial tool for them to be able to do that. Or
So we
anyone.
should, yeah, so we could benefit from it by have that conversation. Maybe they can plug that in and see, and we could be working with more current information.
Yeah. Agreed.
So
When
I
is-
brought up to merge the 2 districts, you have to merge not only the health insurance, but their salary schedules, and the law requires that no teacher will be reduced in salary. You don't have
Right.
to put them on the same step.
Yeah, we
But-
did that. We did that all, Matt. And so no teacher lost out, and we adjusted salary schedules. So all that has been done.
Right, yes, it's in this report. I was just trying to let everybody know that has to be done. And has
Yeah.
been.
But what's interesting is that was all encapsulated in the tool that they created, which is great.
Right.
We're all set, Mr. Chairman, and ready to go, ready to leave.
When's the next meeting?
That's what I was just going to ask you. I don't have it on my October calendar.
I think we proposed, what was it, October, what was it, 24th? Somewhere?
23rd, it's on the agenda. The 23rd was what was stated.
23rd? Let's
That's
fix
Okay.
it.
I
Yeah, the
won't be
fourth.
there.
Right, the
All right.
fourth Wednesday.
I can't make the 23rd.
Mm. Michelle, are you meeting on the 24th at Pioneer?
Yes, we are.
My sister's coming to visit unless she has surgery. So I can keep
And we're
you
meeting
posted.
the 17th. So that doesn't work.
The 16th, you mean? Wednesday, the 16th?
No, the school committee's meeting the
Oh.
17th, but I could meet the 16th.
I can't meet the 16th. Not as, I've got a select board meeting at 6
On Tuesday?
on a Wednesday. It's the 16th,
Wednesday.
October
Oh,
16th.
oh, that's
Yeah.
a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 23rd is open for me, but that's,
Yeah, you should just stay on the 23rd.
Well, review everything, Jane, and get your comments in because they're very helpful.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll record it too. So, I mean, that's going to
Hmm.
be probably more than one meeting, I would guess.
Yeah.
Jane, you don't think your sister would find this meeting entertaining?
I'm not going to answer that. They think I have rocks in my head for all the time I give to this stuff anyway. So.
And it's
Oh.
appreciated.
Are we
It's
keeping
okay.
it, keeping it on the 23rd then for now? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
Okay, Michelle, I guess we're,
all
Make a
right.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I had made the motion to adjourn. I had moved to
Oh.
adjourn.
Oh, okay.
That's all right, Alan. All right.
No, and Jane is seconded. That's
I
good.
just
So
realized it.
Alan Genovese,
All right.
yes.
Okay, we'll see you in October.
You doing a roll call? We could just say,
Yes,
Oh, yes, I already.
yeah,
yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
that's everybody.
yes.
All
yeah.
right.
Bye.